My name is Dimitry. I'm online as Rassah. I've been pretty much involved with Bitcoin for since 2011. A lot of times I do kind of Bitcoin trading speeches. This is kind of probably going to be somewhat of a review for a lot of them, but I'll be talking about all the different kinds of Bitcoin wallets that are available out there and kind of what we're going into in the future. So, kind of a basics review of how Bitcoin works. Bitcoin is basically a list of transactions in a global ledger. All the transactions have accounts, so essentially it's a ledger of accounts. Each account has a private key associated with it, which allows you to prove that you're the owner of that account. And a wallet, all a wallet is a way of storing that private key securely that you can use to prove ownership later. So, like in a ledger, there'd be a lot of accounts. One key, which would look like this, would correspond to a specific address proving that you own it. So the most basic type of wallet out there is a paper wallet. Basically what you do is you take this random number for the private key and you write it down on a piece of paper. The benefit of that is it's the easiest to secure kind of wallet that we have because it makes Bitcoin a physical item because your key is in a physical form, and we've had 3,000 years of physical security versus 20, maybe 30 years of digital security. So to secure Bitcoin this way, print it out on a piece of paper, the private key, stick it in a safe, vault, whatever, you're good. Downside, though, is typically a wallet would allow you to actually create a transaction and send money to somebody. A private key doesn't really do anything. It just sits on a piece of paper. So if you want to actually spend it, that would require you to import that private key into some sort of a wallet that will actually let you spend. And the downside is if it's not a secure wallet that you're importing it to, then all your lots of security pretty much becomes useless at that point. Like, for instance, if you import your private key into a Windows PC infected with malware, try to spend it, the malware will steal all your money. Some of the examples of what a paper wallet might look like. There's a BitcoinPaperWallet.com makes a really pretty one. Bitaddress.org is a pretty well-known one as well. So here you see your private key, public key, and QR codes to be able to import them really quickly. Next easiest to use wallet, I guess, would be a hosted wallet. This would basically be if you don't believe you're really good with IT security, you can outsource your security to somebody else. In this case, it would be like a professional company that has its own security practices. They have IT, they have insurance, and they would basically work like a bank. So it's essentially like you take your Bitcoin Cash and stick it into a vault, have somebody else take care of it. The downside, though, is like with a bank, you would have to depend on the actual company to keep the keys for you. You have no control over your keys, and if they lose them or if they decide that you shouldn't have access to them, then you're kind of screwed. So there's risk of account restrictions, theft, scams. There's been reports of certain exchanges. We know certain exchanges have run off with the money or lost it. There's been reports of exchanges that would track what you're spending money on, and if they don't like it, where it's going, they can kind of lock up your account too. Won't name names, but I'm sure you can figure that out. And these are some of the examples for what a hosted wallet company would be like. A lot of them are actually exchanges just because it's convenient to combine a trusted wallet with, a secured hosted wallet with a way to switch it between dollars and Bitcoins, since they have your Bitcoin, so they can very quickly do the transaction either way. Whereas if you were holding the Bitcoins anytime you wanted to trade it, you would actually have to authorize them to send the Bitcoin to somebody else. The next one that the Bitcoin sphere invented was a hybrid wallet. This would basically be a Bitcoin wallet that's stored on a website, but all the actual Bitcoin security stuff runs locally on your computer. So essentially you would go to a website. The website would download a Java app onto your browser on your computer, and within your computer, it would decrypt it with your password, store your keys only on your computer, do all the signing only on your computer, and then whenever you finish doing what you need to do, all your information is encrypted and sent back to the server. So this means that all this data is stored in the cloud, I guess, meaning you can access it from any computer, any browser, anywhere in the world. But the downside is if you are using a compromised computer, like you go into libraries or malware someplace, you can get hacked. So on the one hand, you control your keys, but you have to be sure that you're using a secure secure device to be able to use them. And this would be blockchain.info, CryptoKit, Rush Wallet. Blockchain was the first one that came up with that idea a long time ago, made it convenient for a lot of new users, probably why they, I don't know if they still do, but used to have the biggest number of wallets for a while. And then probably most popular ones is a Bitcoin wallet app. This would be what probably most of you use. It's an app that's installed in your own phone. Works like a little banking app, just keeps your Bitcoins there, lets you spend it, see your balance. Nice thing about those is all of your private keys are stored right on your phone. They're not controlled by anybody else. You can spend money anywhere you want to send it to anybody you want to. You're in full control. It's also less susceptible to hacks and theft than PC and browser wallets. Nice thing about phones is since all the operating system for them started being developed much, much later than PCs, they kind of kept the security in mind. So a lot of your wallet apps are actually totally separated from all your other applications, so it's much harder for any malware or viruses to steal your private keys. Downside, though, is if you lose your phone, don't have a backup, you're pretty much screwed. And in our company, we usually get about 1 or 2 emails a month, sometimes more, about people like, hey, I lost my Bitcoins. Here's my email. Can you please restore my money? Do you have a backup? No. No. So please back up your wallets, people. Some examples of those would be the Bitcoin wallet. That's the Andreas Schilbach Bitcoin wallet, the original one. So he got dibs on the name before anybody else did. Bread wallet, Mycelium. I think Bread wallet is kind of dead right now. I'm not entirely sure. Green address, Airbits, Hive. Then slightly step up from that is a hardware wallet. This would be basically your most secure way of storing Bitcoins while still being able to spend them. So although paper wallets are the most secure for storing, they're not really good for spending, whereas hardware wallets does both. It's good for securing and spending. These would basically be your hardware devices that are specifically designed to keep your private keys safe and to sign your transactions directly on the hardware device. So when you use a hardware wallet, your keys never actually leave that specific device. There's no way for them to get hacked by viruses or malware or anything like that. It's also the most convenient way of storing keys that you don't want to lose, because most wallets support just being able to plug in the hardware device into your computer or wallet and spend directly from that hardware. So, for instance, with Mycelium, you would say you want to send money to somebody. When you create a transaction and hit send, it'll just ask you, hey, hook this hardware up. You hook the hardware up. The hardware says, asks you to verify whether you actually want to send to such and such address. You say confirm. It signs it, sends it back to the phone, and broadcasts it. If you have any malware on your PC or phone, it's not going to touch it. The two most well-known ones are Trezor and Ledger right there. They're mostly USB wallets right now, but they're coming out with NFC and other kind of options as well. The newest type of secure wallet, and you guys heard about it earlier this morning when Stephen was talking about Rivets. This is a trusted hardware device that's built into your phones. A lot of phones have specific secure chip hardware that is already built into phones, which a long time ago was kind of added there with the idea that banks might use them to secure your password for secure banking. banks didn't really care about security, so the chips just sat there for years and years. So a couple of Bitcoiners said, hey, this would be great for storing Bitcoin keys, so they decided to put it to use. So the chips are already there, they just need to have the software set up to work with it. And the nice thing about this is it combines your phone wallet app, so whatever app you're using right now is the one, like all the features you'll have will be there, but all the signing will be done on an actual hardware chip that's totally separate. So you'll have convenience of your nice fancy wallet app with the security of like using a Trezor or a Ledger. And the two examples that are available right now are the Ledger, Trustlet, and the Rivets, which I'm hoping will be done soon. My guess is eventually, my hope is that Bitcoin will kind of push this in the direction where eventually our smartphones that run Bitcoin wallets will be like secure signing hardware devices that also run smartphone apps or something. And then kind of a new thing that Bitcoin created that has never existed before with Tony taking pictures because he likes this slide. Never existed before Bitcoin came around, a way to store money in your brain called brain wallets. Basically, you would create some sort of a memorable phrase. There's this one that's kind of easy to remember. It has different characters in there. One of the suggestions I've heard many times is, never use anything that you pick out of a book or a written material because all of that was probably going to be cracked really quick. But you can think of events in your own life that wouldn't really be mentioned anywhere. Like, for example, your brain wallet could be, I stayed at the D on October 28th, and it had a McDonald's and rattling elevators. That you can kind of remember that, but nobody would actually think of using that to search through. More advanced things with brain wallets is you can have an algorithm where you remember a phrase that changes slightly, but you can't use one phrase to derive the other one. I'm not entirely, haven't figured that one out yet. Somebody told me about this, and their idea was that they created multiple brain wallets, which they can remember based on this algorithm in their head. They loaded them with different amounts of funds, and I thought that is, what he told me, like, let's say I get arrested, I'm in jail, but I want somebody to do something for me. I can say, hey, here's a private key, there's $50 on it, you can verify it, and if you do something for me, I'll tell you another phrase that'll pay you like $5,000 or whatever. So your money's in your head, and you can split it up into different payments however you want to. But it's susceptible to memory loss, so as always, keep backups. And memory loss comes from not just old age, but like any trauma or something could mess you up too. So careful. Then I mentioned that most of the basic wallets, there's a private key, and it's associated with a public key. So there's a list of accounts, and each account has a private key associated with it. A more advanced kind of way of storing wallets is called hierarchical deterministic. Said it right, basically, the way it works is instead of a single random number being associated with each address, you have kind of a version of a brain wallet, which would be a list of words, which is called your seed, which you would add certain characters to the end to generate a new address sequentially. So your first address would be your seed plus your wallet number plus address number would be address 1. Seed plus wallet number plus address plus the second number would be 2, and so on. The benefit of this is you can use a single backup, which would be your seed, and from that single seed you can generate an unlimited number of wallets. So here's an example of what that seed would look like Label, Tiger, Crush, whatever. So the point is, every time you create a transaction, like normally we started thinking, since we only had one address per wallet before, we were thinking that address would be your account. With an HD wallet, each transaction would use a new address. So essentially your address would be kind of like your check number in a way. The benefit of that is that if you were to use only a single address, since all the transactions are public on the blockchain, anybody who you receive money, like you say, hey, pay me to this address, I can look at that address and see your entire transaction history. If you used an HD wallet where every single time you send money or receive money, it's a totally different address, there's no way to link your addresses together without doing some really, really heavy statistics. So it's basically to improve privacy. It also makes it much easier to create multiple accounts. So you might want to have your spending account or a savings account, and both of those are backed up by your seed. Or if you're in a business, you can have different accounts for different departments, each one also with different seeds. So your CFO would have a single backup seed for all of it, but your people who actually spend money in different departments would have totally different setups. And nice thing about HD wallets is just like regular addresses, they also have a public and a private key version. So you have your XPub and an XPriv, it's what they're called. From the XPub public version, if you have that, you can generate all the public addresses that somebody would have without actually being able to get their private addresses. So you can still do things like have watch-only addresses with HD, which is nice for hardware wallets because if you have a Trezor, for example, you can import your all your Trezor public seed into your wallet, always monitor all your Trezor addresses received to new addresses without actually having the private keys to spend from them. Kind of a more advanced thing, which we've been talking about for, I guess, a year and a half now, but it's still not really that well used. It's called a multisig address. Basically, this would be an address where instead of a single key allowing you to spend from one address, you would need multiple keys to spend from that single address. So basically, it's like splitting your key, your permission for spending for multiple devices. And some of the ones that do support that right now are Cypherx Green Address Armory. But as I said, unfortunately, it's not really available in kind of daily use wallets. Hopefully it will be. And that's all the wallets. So.
Very grateful for Dimitry to come up here and share this with us.
Yeah, sorry it's so short.
No, that's great. I love it. It helps us get back on track. And yeah, the Mycelium wallet, how many of you use Mycelium wallet? Raise your hand in here. So look around the room here. My two favorite wallets are Mycelium and Airbits.
How many use Airbits?
Yeah, Airbits room. So I use that too, so I have my hand up both times.
How many use both?
Yeah. There you go. So they're both powerful wallets, and for different reasons, a lot of crossover too. So I'm just excited with all that you guys are doing in the development and in this trusted execution environment. I'm still learning the terminology. That's amazing.
Yeah. So, speaking of, if you want to see that future of wallets where it's executed on a secure chip on the phone, hit me up. We have that running in our phone already. It's just in beta.
Awesome. So any questions for Mycelium for Rassah here? Anybody raise a hand? Okay. Oh, one here, right here. Okay. Yes, sir. Let me bring the mic to you.
I was just wondering when Mycelium is planning to go to the PC, if you guys are.
Yeah. As you guys may or may not know, our iPhone wallet kind of sucks. Mainly because our dev decided not to continue work on it, and it's so far behind our Android because iPhone sucked. If you don't know the history, until very recently, iPhone would ban and block Bitcoin apps. So we had 3 years of development on Android and nothing for iPhone because nobody had it. So by the time we started with the iPhone app, it would take us way too long to catch up. So recently we decided to start from scratch because it would take us a very long time to write the iPhone app. So we figured, well, let's just do both. So we are going to kind of rewrite our wallet. It'll work on both iPhones and Android and Windows Phone and PCs because it'll be Java and open source. So we're aiming for summer, but it's going to be a hell of a lot of work because there's going to be a hell of a lot of new stuff in it.